So I'm doing my project on the creation of Israel, and basically what it was Israel's created in 1948, but there's a long history uh, that led up to it. The thing about it is we had for the beginning of time, since biblical times, we've had problems with Israel. We've had fights with Israel, and it really goes to show that what happened was this long process of what the Jewish people, God's called people, what happened was is they finally came to it. They finally fulfilled the prophecy, and the thing is, the Jews and the Arabs have been fighting for centuries over the land. It's been since like the biblical times. They've had battles and sieges and the Crusades and all these different things with just crazy things that have happened during time. The real push didn't start though for the new Holy Land until the 19th century, the late 19th century, and the beginning of the 20th century, when we had a new idea called Zionism. And the ideology of Zionism is the idea of a Jewish state returning to Israel and establishing a new Holy Land. And this really came to mind after World War II when Britain, who had the land been given to them since World War One, they decided to separate the states, and they were going to allow the people that are there, the Muslims, the Arabs, the Jewish people that are there in Israel and Jerusalem and Palestine, this part of the world, allowed them to make it up their own. And the thing was that the Palestinians, the Arabs that were there already, didn't want to give it up because the Jewish people, they thought it was their land, and the Arabs didn't want to give it up because they've been there since centuries, so it didn't matter. And they felt like they needed to keep their land. That was a part of them. After World War II, we got to the point where Great Britain could no longer handle the state because of just money. After a war, they were just battling, trying to get back into their ways of just making money, and so they decided to leave the land. But there was a tension that rose because now you have the Jewish people and the Arabs trying to get to this land, and it led to a tension that the British just finally gave up to the UN, and the UN voted on it and gave the land to the Jews and gave land to the Arabs, which would now be called Israel and Palestine. So what happened is that the tension was so strong that everyone began to like just get ready for a fight. So we finally got to a point where it was just like anything can boil up to a point, and we could have a war at any second. So after this, we have an impact of like the war doesn't happen. That Israel and Palestine they settle, and and the UN votes on it, and they adopt the nation. And the two recognizing forces are, which is really kind of ironic, is the U.S. and the USSR. And it was big because these two nations would eventually hate each other and have basically one of the most like potential devastating wars, which wasn't really a war, to ever exist. The impact of the creation of Israel had more conflict in the Middle East than ever. There's still conflict today with the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, all these different things that we still have problems with. It's led to many of wars: the Six-Day War in 1967, the War of Attrition, 69 and 70, Yom Kippur War, that led to one of the biggest divisions in the Middle East ever. It's just one of those things that it's hard for people to agree on because there's been people there and there's people that believe they're entitled to the land. So the conflict is it's a hard understanding concept. So we really have to decide that who really deserves it is whoever is going to really fight for it. And both sides believe that they deserve it, so that's why they keep fighting for it. So the creation of Israel, it allowed Jewish people to have a home after World War II and all the bad things, all the awful things like the Holocaust and just the anti-Semitic thoughts that people had towards them. And it really established a new way, a new opening to Jewish people, and now they could have an opening to a new land, and the Holy Land be reestablished. So that basically was a big push into what we have now. And now we have an Israel that's always in the news, but it's still trying to find itself. So that's all I had about the report. That's it. Thank you.